Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Flash, and thank you again for joining me for another Marvel Snap video. So, in this video here, I want to talk about this Ronan deck. So, I appreciate all the love, all the support, all the recent kind of traction, right, for all the interactions that I've had recently with subscriptions and follows and all the likes and reposts on, you know, talking about this deck specifically in the past few days. I very much appreciate that, and thank you for coming. Thank you for checking this out. Like and subscribe goes a long way, you know that by now. So, and shout out to, you know, Glazer and everybody over there at you know, Snap Judgment podcast for showcasing this deck and getting it out in front of some more people. Thank you again, everybody. So, that being said, I know I had posted about this deck previously, right? So you can check that video out if you haven't already. Now, this video, I kind of wanted to get into the finer details much further about play lines, my thoughts on play lines, and some replacements if you need be, because those have been a lot of the questions recently. I don't necessarily have this card, I don't have that card. It's fine, you know, try this, try that, whatever the case may be. There are a couple of different directions you can go with this deck. So first and foremost, just starting at the low end is Nebula. In my opinion, this is not a card that's replaceable here because she has a two-prong effect where she's a card that works well in a lockdown style scenario, and she acts as control in the meantime before you get to that point, because putting her in a blind lane over on the right side on turn one forces your opponent to now play over there to counteract that, or just let her keep growing. So it is kind of a pseudo control. I even had games where I've let Nebula stay in the lane by herself and just completely go in the other direction with Storm on another location. That's something you can do. It's not crazy, okay? Iceman is just here to be just pure disruption. Now, Iceman to me is flexible in a way where you can put something else instead. Spider Ham, heck, if you're feeling that froggy, Korg, right? You can, just as long as I think you have another piece of disruption here in this one drop slot, pick whichever one of those you want, fits your flavor at the moment, also depending on what you're seeing a lot of. Master Mold. So the original kind of versions of this deck, right, which are different builds, and shout out to Ramek and Aoi, they've played builds of this deck and showcased builds of this deck, and it has Mold and Mordo. I have Mordo out currently because Loki. Now, my opinion, Mold is not necessarily the, oh, you have to have him in there with Ronan. I think the have to card with Ronan is Maximus. That's his, you play Ronan, you play Maximus, period. Now, the card to pair with them is Mold or Baron Mordo, in my opinion. One of them I think is mandatory. I think the other turns into a flex spot. In my opinion, I think Mold is a better choice just because Mordo, you're running a gamut of having your opponent pull a 6-drop and then it has no effect other than to thin your opponent's deck and to give them an extra card draw. Or if you're playing as someone who's playing Mobius, it has zero effect at all, period, and then you're just helping the opponent thin their deck. So I think Master Mold is a better choice, helps clog the deck out and gives your opponent cards they don't necessarily want to play. Sometimes they're like, sure, I'll take the Sentinels, but it's changing their game plan now in a way that they maybe didn't anticipate doing. So it adds a second, you know, like a second level of disruption. Jeff is arguably the best 2-drop in the game. He goes in 90% of the decks in the game, period. If you're doing anything that involves potentially locking a lane down, Jeff needs to be in your deck. Bottom line, if you don't have Jeff, play Nightcrawler. Granted, he won't be able to get you in a Professor X lane or playing directly into like Sanctum or something like that, but he can do some of the things that Jeff can do. Okay, play Nightcrawler if you don't have Jeff, but you need one of those things in here because you want the option to be able to jump into that storm lane later if you have to. Mystique is here because she copies the two things that are parts of your win condition, which is Miss Marvel and Ronan, flat out. And Iron Lad can copy her. We'll get into Iron Lad in a minute. Storm because this is your control lockdown piece. Storm goes into one lane. Maybe you have Nebula in that lane. What I like to do is play Storm in either the left or the right lane, depending on what the location is, and then play Miss Marvel in the middle. A lot of people like to play Storm middle and Miss Marvel on top of that. I think the best plan is what I just mentioned. It just gives you another level of being able to not have to play into the Storm lane and where your opponent might, and give you the advantage. Mobius and Mobius. Mobius goes, if you have reached a point where you're seeing a lot of Loki decks, you almost have to put Mobius in. And I say almost because a lot of the games I've played recently where I've been able to get Mobius down on the board against a Loki deck, a lot of the times I've now started to realize they don't care. Because they have Collector down, they're playing Nico, they've copied a Collector, they have two Collectors down. Now they're playing a Collector deck. And they just like, okay, well, I'm just going to play the Loki, add 1,000 points to these Collectors, and I'm going to win anyway. In which case, yeah. Which makes you understand why Loki is the problem. And hopefully that's up. You know, in the upcoming changes that we're getting to some of the other stuff, hopefully Loki's in there because something's got to be done. But if you don't want to play, heck, you want to play Mobius, you want to play Baron Mordo, Shadow King's a good option, especially against a lot of the cards. Just be careful not to nuke your Nebula in the process. Maximus, he's the card that pairs with Ronan here. One of the best win conditions for this deck is Ronan on 5, and in turn 6 you go Mystique into Maximus. It just wins you a lot of games. It's an unexpected play line, and your opponents are not really planning for that per se. Okay, Miss Marvel, my opinion, she's the MVP of this entire deck because Ronin decks have been done in different ways over the past year, and to mostly very little success outside of Dara. And they've just been at best, at best, right? You're not expecting to really win anything of note with a Ronin deck generally. Now in here, I just kind of define it as a package. It's where you put one of those packages, a small package piece together, and then it works. Miss Marvel helps bring that all together, especially if you can get her copied, right? Now she adds a level of, okay, yeah, you have the Ronin points, but now you have an extra 5 or 10 in that lane where you're playing Ronin. Yeah, now you're talking, not that's something substantial, right? Or even if you put her in the middle in the Miss Marvel lane, which generally doesn't have a lot of power itself, especially if you copied it with Mystique, okay? Iron Lad is one of the best cards in the game, right? If you were doing a listing of the best cards in the game, you would be pressed to get through 10 cards and one of them wasn't Iron Lad. Okay, it thins your deck almost in a way where you have the information. Doesn't physically thin your deck. It's not pulling a card, it's not doing like Jubilee, but you have the information, so it's like mentally thinning your deck, right? And it gives you a second card in a way, you know, with that Mystique can't, where she only copies ongoing. Iron Lad is like, yeah, what card do you have in your deck? What's the next at the top? Yeah, you have another one of those now. Copying a Miss Marvel. I've had games where I copied Miss Marvel, then played Miss Marvel on the next turn, and then Mystique after her. That's something that unless your opponent is playing Enchantress, they can't deal with. Because I've done all three of those things in one lane in the middle and had an opponent play Rogue. Okay, you're only getting one of those. The other two are still active. So needless to say, I won that game. Iron Lad is good. Very good. Ronan, his package is in here and it works. Especially if you have Miss Marvel down, you go Ronan, Mystique, Maximus. You can win a lot of games doing that. Flat out. And you have, and as you know, Master Mold early helps with that, obviously. Now be careful with Master Mold if you're playing against Loki. If you're playing against Loki in general, be careful. Also, another deck to be careful against with this is Discard. Okay? Because especially if you've identified that you have to go in the Ronin direction, if you're playing against Discard and your best options based on what you've drawn is to go in the direction of the Ronin package, retreat from that game. You are not going to win. Now, if you go in the Miss Marvel route, you have a chance. Especially if you can, you know, get that power down, get Alioth down, you can do something there. Get out of there if you have to do the Ronin stuff, because they're going to beat you 9 times out of 10. And at the top end, Alioth, because Alioth is just good. He's the big bad of of our current phase, current meta of the game. Alioth is just the irritant card, period. Especially if you're playing anything control, lockdown style, and you've won a lane, he's giving you an auto win if you have priority. Point blank, okay? Now, if you don't have Alioth, or you vehemently do not want to play Alioth for personal reasons, play Dr. Doom. That will win you just as many. Now, in every other Miss Marvel deck, I put together a Miss Marvel control deck that I'm kind of working on. Stay tuned for that. It might be okay. Dr. Doom goes there. Dr. Doom is just good, right? Especially considering there's no other 6-drops in this game and in this deck. So if you've played Miss Marvel, that's guaranteeing that those lanes are going to be an extra 10 power with those Doom bots. So, you know, that's not extra, but the Doom bot plus the buff, that's 10. You know what I'm trying to say. Dr. Doom is absolutely viable. Like, I've had games where, because I have, like I said, I'm working on another decks that have Dr. Doom in it. I've had games where playing this deck, where I get to the end, I was like, oh, if I just had Dr. Doom here, or I had Iron Land ready to like copy something, I was like, if he just copied Dr. Doom here, that would be great. Like, and that's one of the things that when you're playing a deck with Dr. Doom and Iron Lad copies of Dr. Doom, you're probably going to win that game. Okay, because that's a combination that's just that good. Right? And now, and most of the time, your opponent will retreat from that. Once you see an Iron Lad copy of Dr. Doom, they now know that you also have another Dr. Doom to play on turn 6, and they usually kind of get out of there. That's too much power for most decks to handle in, you know, spread wide like that. So all of that being said, let's maybe take this deck for a spin here, just to give another, you know, one last kind of go round for everybody in the back. I've now fallen to 477. Now, like I said, the further you get up the proverbial ladder into high infinite, and we lost Mobius, no big deal. They lost Brood. That's probably not great, especially if they're playing a, you know, Surfer, Patriot, whatever they're playing. Brood is a essential piece of that deck because they put it in there. Ant-Man, fascinating. So like I said, see, we got the early line. We've got Nebula in the right lane. I'm looking to put Storm here now because now I got 3 energy I can play. I'm just going to storm that out now. We don't know what it is. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Let's lock that down. The only way this doesn't necessarily go in our favor is if our opponent is, I don't know, has Killmonger. So here I can go Jeff. I can go Jeff and Iceman. Let's leave Jeff in the middle just in case. Let's go Iceman left. Let's spread this out because I like to leave the middle open just in case I have to start putting multiple things in there between Miss Marvel and Mystique, etc. Okay. I'm not gonna snap here or anything because I want to kind of play this all the way out and see how it goes. Okay, so now in hand, we're looking at Eliath, Miss Marvel, Maximus, Mystique, Ronan, and that was enough for. Alright, sometimes it's just how that goes. Sometimes that's just enough for opponent to just go. I wanted to get a little bit more than that, so we'll queue up another one. I wasn't, it's not like I snapped there. I wasn't expecting them to just kind of straight away retreat. That wasn't my intention. I wasn't trying to scare anybody off. This is why a lot of times, when we create content, a lot of creators they record those videos or they do stuff when they're doing things for content. They don't snap because you want to, kind of showcase the entire play line of what the deck is supposed to do. All right, so Mobius. I don't have an early. Okay, clearly this person has seen me somewhere. Well, that's starting to happen. Yondu, my Jeff. I can live with that. Nebula. We're going Nebula into the blind lane. So he's playing Destroy. A lot of people are putting Yondu back into these Destroy decks, which is very interesting. He has Killmonger, obviously he's playing Destroy. So we're gonna go Mobius, right? I want to have something over there after he kills the Nebula. Because I'm gonna go, and the Mobius shuts down his death. So too bad, sad for him. So now I can go Miss Marvel. Right, so now we have a play line, an interesting play line, and Limbo's on the board. So the best he can do as far as the top end is Null. Okay, and Deadpool. Because he's getting busy with that Deadpool. So, but I'm gonna draw 2 cards here. So that's good for me. Okay, so here's where things get interesting. Because I can Limbo. I can storm the Limbo location. I think that might be my plan. Because I'm gonna play. Let's play Master Mold. Iceman also an option. No, because he's just gonna Killmonger that. So let's go Master Mold in the left lane. Now here's the big time decision to be made here on turn 6. It's either because he's played Venom, he's played Carnage, and there's his Killmonger, so he doesn't have much destroy generators. Like, he doesn't have any destroy activators left unless he has Deathlock, which a lot of those decks have been cutting Deathlock, and maybe he did because he's got Yondu in here, so he had to cut something. All right, let's do. I'm not sure I have the overarching power here to go over the top of anything, and I have no more cards in my deck, so this is it. This is what we're playing with here. Iron Lad does nothing. So Eliath is an option, but not a good one here. I think this could either be, because if I shut this down and end the game here, okay, let's do that, because I think this is a situation where he goes null at the end of this game. So let's do that. Let's just shut this down and hope for the best. Let's see what he plays here. I'm thinking maybe he goes. Oh, he went with the Zola. Okay, That's fair. That's fine. And silly me, I went and played Maximus in the same lane as Storm, shutting down my extra 5 there. Which I don't think would have mattered anyway. Yeah, see, like, even if I had played Maximus on that, I wasn't going to have enough power at the total end of this game anyway. The best chance I had there was to pop Eliath in that, you know, when he played that Zola. But again, you have to... I've played this deck against many a destroy deck and just rolled them. But that, he was hitting a destroy deck that's hitting every single draw, every single turn. Like, that's... It's difficult to beat, you know, when they have that line going and they're blowing up the Deadpool and they got X23. When they have the complete line going, once destroy is going downhill, it's very difficult to beat, right? So even though I took his death out of play, it didn't matter, right? Because he probably had null that he was going to play after that Arnim Zola Venom thing that he did. So nevertheless, be that as it may, thank y'all for checking this out. Thank y'all for, again, all the love, all the support recently, and thank you for checking out this complete line by line breakdown of what this Ronan deck does, what it's looking to do, some replacements if you don't have certain cards. And I appreciate the love, the support. Thank you everybody who's been shouting me out. I appreciate y'all. Catch y'all in the next video.